Hey everybody, it's Josh Ellsworth with Stahls, and I'm so excited that you've chosen to join us today for this session, Advice for Small Business Owners Getting into HTV, that's Heat Transfer Vinyl. So we have a great audience today. A lot of you signed up for this, so you must be looking to understand the benefits of heat transfer vinyl and really the basics on how to use it. And this is one of my favorite categories of product. When I started here at Stahls many years ago, I led our heat transfer vinyl division, so I've been hands-on with the material for a number of years, understand the intricacies of the various products and what works best for what types of products, and also have my own little side hustle here. And we're in my spare bedroom today where I have my Hotronix heat press, my Graftec cutter that we'll be working with is behind me right there, and some different rolls of heat transfer vinyl. I'm going to walk you through the whole process from start to finish on how to work with HTV and give you a lot of tips along the way, along with recommendations on products that I think you should get started with first. As always, this is designed to be live, and we do it live for a reason, and that's for the interaction. Otherwise, we would just record these and post them onto YouTube, but we love to have a live audience attending with us, and that's because we love your questions. So if you have questions throughout, Stacy will be here with me today, helping to host the webinar, and she will do her best to chat back and answer your questions, and also interject at several points to present some questions to me throughout the presentation so we can answer them for the benefit of the whole audience. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with my presentation, which is advice for small businesses getting into HTV. And of course, whether you're the owner of the business or not, we've designed this one for business owners because I'm going to talk a little bit about cost and profit. But even if you're a designer or a production worker that works for a company, there'll be a lot of things in here that will be beneficial to you. Now, I always like to start with where HTV fits in because one important thing to understand, and it's a mistake I've seen with a lot of shops, is that HTV is not a one technology fits all, meaning if you're using HTV for all of your t-shirt decoration jobs in your business, you're probably leaving money on the table. Just like if you were using screen print transfers or screen printing or embroidery for all the decoration jobs in your business, you're potentially leaving money on the table. All of these technologies exist and have their unique place in the market and in your business to help you generate profit. And so where does HTV fit in? Number one is low quantity custom. As you'll see here today, I'll be cutting single items for customization live. And so it is actually cost effective to do jobs as little as one piece. Now, of course, there's some considerations on the artwork on whether it can be efficient to do artwork setup for one piece, and you may want to charge for that. But as far as like what it costs in the material and the labor and the decoration, you can do HTV in quantities as little as one. And actually, there are whole businesses spun up around doing one-off HTV jobs, websites, big websites where you can come in, you can personalize your item, and you can get that item decorated on demand. And I really think that's something to take note of. HTV, while it works great for a hobbyist and a crafter, it's used by some of the biggest brands out there with the quality of materials we're going to show you today for even doing higher end items like performance wear, which we'll dabble in a little bit today, show you the right product for that. Personalization. As you might imagine, when something is efficient for doing quantities of one, yes, well, I can do one small business logo or one sports team name. Personalization really has its unique place in the market, and HTV is one of the best fits for personalization. And what I mean by personalization is I mean putting a player name or a player number on the back of a jersey. That's one way. Putting a customized message or a hashtag or a Instagram handle or a Twitter handle is another way you can do personalization, incorporating it. Another thing we see a lot is monogramming, putting somebody's initials or perhaps for a wedding gift, something like that. You see a lot of custom gifting that incorporates personalization for different holidays, from monogramming to names to Mother's Day and Father's Day and Christmas. There are so many different concepts where you can incorporate personalization. It applies to a wide variety of markets. Made to order, I mentioned that a bit, but the fact that you can get the order, You can order the shirt, you can have the shirt in stock, you can cut as little as one, and you can literally make the order. Actually, I've worked events, NBA All-Star games, where we've started with just a roll of vinyl, something that looked like this, onto a vinyl cutter, and we've personalized fan jerseys on demand and made to order in big event spaces. Now, of course, we're not doing event spaces like we used to right now. We're seeing some fans at some of the games and some of the stands, but if you walk into any of those arenas, odds are you'll see a vinyl cutter and perhaps a Stahls heat press for doing that made-to-order business, whether it's in sports uniforms or we see it even at concerts with T-shirts. So lots of opportunities there. Now, even if you're not doing a low quantity job, 6 pieces, 12 pieces, 24 pieces, which HTV makes great sense for, there's also this special effect and special performance note here. And I wanted to get this in up front because sometimes there is a finish of material that can be achieved with HTV that means people are even using it for jobs that are 1,000 pieces of the same logo. And trust me, we've seen it here before. Products like 3M reflective material that's certified, that's an HTV product that can be cut on a vinyl cutter. We see people doing large volumes in some of these effects. Products like glitter, which we'll use here today, that has a texture and a sparkle to it, are used for higher quality jobs because these are looks and styles and finishes that are very difficult to replicate with traditional print methods or require specialized equipment or a lot of mess to replicate with other print methods. So we see the limits in the quantities of HTV stretching up into higher quantities for this special effect, but also special performance. And you'll understand a little bit by what I mean of special performance. When you think of stretch and recovery, sometimes that's tough to do with other technology sets out there. When you think of having the ability to block dye migration, that can be difficult to do. When you think of customizing onto nylon fabrics or even faux leather fabrics like a handbag or a purse, there are this special use element of HTV where there's this simplicity that as long as I have the time, temperature, pressure right, and these are the critical few to get accuracy in a heat application, we see HTV used in a lot of ways that you wouldn't imagine. People can't imagine the things that you can press with HTV. I've seen everything from socks to pop-up tents to tire covers on the back of a Jeep. There are just so many business models and markets that spin up from this category that we call HTV. Now, as you get through this, one of my goals today is, of course, to give you the beginner's guide and show you the workflow of how to utilize HTV from start to finish by completing a few projects. But I also hope to go through some of the different material choices. And so we'll go through the designing process a bit. We'll go through cutting. We'll go through weeding. We'll go through heat application. I'll make my screen larger here in a moment so you can really see all of those steps in action. But before I do all that, I want you to grab your notebook and a pencil, or if you're keeping notes on your computer, that's great, because I want you to understand these top-selling HTV products that I think at the end of this session, you need to know these products. These are the products that I think you'll rely on most for your business, for most of the businesses that we see out there with HTV. And so the first one is Ultraweed. So don't get confused. This is just a product name, but if you're somewhat experienced in heat transfer vinyl, you've probably tested a lot of different products. This Ultraweed is the latest from Stahls. So it comes in a roll. We have these little color swatches that you can request where you can get little color chiclets or swatches of all the colors to be able to hold them up against the shirt and see the colors. But this is a good all-purpose HTV. This is the first one we're going to use here today and load up onto the vinyl cutter. And the reason I like this product so much, and I was able to participate in the development of this, is because it's just easy to use and it checks a lot of the boxes, like we like to say. And so it feels soft on the garment. It's easy to cut. It's easy to weed. It's super easy to heat apply. And it has a pretty wide range of application temperatures. So you can press this product on the garments that need it that are heat sensitive as low as 260 degrees. And so while vinyl will stick to a lot of products, it's important that you have a vinyl that applies at a temperature that won't damage that product. And Ultraweed is the product I'd put at the top of the list. If you haven't used HTV before, try this product. I think you'll like it. This will be your core all-purpose product. If you stock one product in your business, I think it'll be Ultraweed, because it's the perfect marriage of feel, matte finish, workability, price, etc. is going to do a wide range of fabrics for you. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of minimize this slideshow here for a second, and we'll blow me up full screen so we can walk through the process of using Ultraweed. Now, I'm going to be moving you around because we're in between studios today, so I am out of my home, which I think is helpful because most of you are as well, I think. And so I'll be moving the camera angle around and doing my best to get you all the angles you need to see the product in action. So this is a roll of heat transfer vinyl. When you're using heat transfer vinyl, one of the first things I like to explain is how the product is constructed. And so this product is actually 2 layers that you can separate, but it's 3 layers in total. And so on the back of the roll, this typically the matte side that's face up when the roll comes to you is the heat activated adhesive. Okay, so there are different adhesives that are engineered into different vinyls depending on the stretch, the performance, what you want it to apply to, etc. That heat-activated adhesive in the manufacturing process, when we make this, and it is a USA-made product that's manufactured by Stahls, we laminate that or extrude it onto a polyurethane film. Okay, and this is really, it's technical, but it's important for this reason, because we call this category, somehow it became HTV, but vinyl, the word vinyl implies polyvinyl chloride, which is how this stuff used to be made and constructed. And that's a no-no. Polyvinyl chloride has like PVCs. It's PVC in it. It has plasticizers, and it has these harmful chemicals in it that mean you can't decorate onto children's apparel. Now, with HTV of today's age, it's actually a polyurethane based, and it's completely safe for kids' apparel. Actually, we've gone to the lengths of having our materials certified to ensure that they meet the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, that it can be used to decorate children's apparel. And today we'll actually decorate I think a birthday shirt is what we're going to make it, out of glitter and Ultraweed HTV, and show you how to mix different materials together here in a moment. But you have that layer, and you can't separate that layer, but no, you have the polyurethane and the adhesive together. Now, when you're working with HTV, some people love an X-Acto knife. I prefer what I call the Stahls Easy Weeder, and there's a lot of different brands and names out there of this, but it's like a little dental pick almost, you could say. And when you're conducting this weeding process, this pick is extremely helpful to be able to separate that film and adhesive layer that, again, is laminated together from what is called a PET carrier. Okay, so this PET carrier, this plastic layer that you see here, is basically what holds your whole design together after it's been cut in weeding. So when you program this little vinyl cutter, or whatever vinyl cutter you have, every vinyl cutter is going to have a blade that sticks out from the blade holder that looks like this. You can't even see the blade sticking out from the blue part, but you can kind of see it. Trust me, it's there. See a little bit of a glare from it. The extension of that blade needs to be extended as thick as this vinyl layer to cut through the vinyl, but not through the carrier. That is the most challenging part of working with heat transfer vinyl, in my opinion, is getting that blade depth correct. When I was traveling out to shops, I would say 90%, 9 out of the 10 shops that I would visit had their blade depth incorrect. They had it out way too far. And that is the most common cause of what I find to be inaccurate cuts, where you have like wonky corners or skips or perforations, and you're trying to weed it and stuff is peeling up and you're blaming it on the material. Well, if you have that blade out too far and you don't have the right recipe for success on that blade depth, you're going to get bad cuts, and it's going to be a nightmare from the rest of the process on, and you're quickly going to hate this process. Okay, so having your blade extended correctly to go through the film but not through the carrier is critical. Okay, so once you have that, the roll comes to you like this. Now, there's a lot of different styles of carriers. Some are sticky, some are not, some are a little bit sticky, some are way sticky. They all contribute to how the material performs. We'll get into that in a moment. We made this one like the porridge of the middle bear, where we think it's just right? Not too sticky, not sticky enough. It's that just right combination. So once you have that roll, you're going to drop it onto the vinyl cutter. Now, I won't be able to get you up behind the vinyl cutter, but we can see mostly everything from here. So the vinyl cutter that I'm using today is the Graftec CE6000. This is the cutter that I own personally. They're actually on the next model of this, which is the CE7000, which if you were to buy a vinyl cutter today or right now from Stahls, the CE7000 would be what you would get. This model's been discontinued, but a lot of the function and features are the same. So I'm just going to show you on this cutter today. So I'm going to load the roll of heat transfer vinyl. It goes onto a roll holder, and then it pulls through the cutter. And basically, sorry, I lost my handle there. Let's pull it through again. Basically, after you pull this through, you have what's called pinch rollers. So these rollers are adjustable, and they lock down on the edges of the material. There's a lever here that you pull down, and you want those levers to lock down on the edge of the material. This is a roll style cutter, which basically means I'm going to load a roll. It's going to feed the whole roll through, and those rollers, where it makes contact, is going to move the roll back and forth. So if you don't have good contact and you don't have it aligned right, it's going to create issues where your material is going to go off track, and it's going to be a disaster. So you want to take special attention to make sure that you have your cutter set up right. Now, if you don't have a roll style cutter, I know a lot of you are probably have maybe a desktop cutter like a Cricut or Silhouette or something like that. Although you can feed rolls on some of those cutters now, but usually those come with a cutting mat. It's a 12 by 12 or a 12 by 24 sticky mat. And basically you sheet your vinyl down, you put it to the sticky mat, and you load it in. Now, I love those cutters. They're great. They're great for entering into the industry. I know a lot of shops that not only have one of those cutters, but they have 5 of them because they learn it and they just keep growing with it. What I would tell you is once you get to a certain production level where you're doing a lot of HTV, there is zero comparison between what I would call a professional grade cutter like a Roland or a Graftec and a hobby cutter. They have a better motor. They're going to allow you to load a roll, to track straight, to do better unattended cutting. It's a completely new world. And for anybody that's made that jump from a craft cutter to a professional cutter, it's a whole new world. So we locked this down. I turned on the machine. You can see the orange control board came into place. And I'm basically going to tell the machine, hey, go find the front edge of that material. So it'll read the width of the material. It'll retract the material back to the front edge. And then it's going to pull that blade to the front edge of the material to start to think about doing some cutting. Now, again, I'm going to bring you just a little bit closer here. Apologize for the rocky ride, but I want you to see as much as you can. Okay. And at that point, really what I want to do is I want to test the success of my blade depth that I've set. And usually on every cutter, you'll have something called a test cut. And there are a couple factors here. So just like your heat press, which we'll press in a second, is time, temperature, and pressure. On your cutter, you have 3 factors. You have speed, downforce, and offset. Almost forgot them. That would have been terrible if I would have forgot this. But out of those 3 factors, speed is kind of like sometimes you need to adjust it. But downforce is the key one, because downforce has to do with how far this blade, the force that it goes down onto the material. So as long as you have the blade depth correct, you can usually reference the supplier's instructions for the vinyl on what the downforce should be. Okay. And those go in grams of downforce. So most machines go from 0 to 250 grams or 300 grams. Most of the stuff you'll cut in that 0 to 300 range. So any vinyl cutter you get that can hit that range is going to be just fine. So I'm going to move the cutting head to a location on the vinyl. I've already peeled up the edge on this one, so I don't want to do my test cut over that edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit the condition test button on the machine and say, go ahead and do a test cut. And again, I can move that downforce up and down. It basically cuts a little square with a rectangle, with a triangle inside. And when I remove the square, you see how the triangle is missing. The triangle is left behind on the carrier. And so that's our goal. We want to cut through the film, not through the carrier. We want to see nice, sharp, clean corners on this. I also like to remove what's left behind. So I remove this triangle that is left behind from the cutter. And then I'm looking at the carrier itself and inspecting it and saying, how deep is that cutting? Okay. I think it's good if you slightly score that carrier. You don't want to be digging into that carrier too deep. It's very difficult to get it perfect where you're going to be cutting through the film and not through the carrier at all. So a very light score, you should be able to see the outline of what you've just cut. I can see the triangle here, should be present on that carrier. That means you're set at a good blade depth and downforce. If it cuts through both, you're going to end up not only ruining vinyl, you're going to ruin the cutting strip where the blade lands down to do the cutting, and you're going to wear down your blade a lot quicker. Okay, so I'm going to just advance this up, and then I'm going to stop and peek in at some questions just to make sure I'm not losing anybody here. But after I've done my test cut and I'm happy with that, I'm just going to move the blade where I want it to start cutting, and I'm going to press the origin button, and basically that tells the machine that I want it to start cutting at that location. So let's see, I'm going to advance the material. Sorry, it's tough to talk and do what you want to do at the same time. Now I'll hit the origin and I'm good at that location. Let me peek in here. All right. Yeah, so if you have the CE50, if you have a smaller cutter, it'll cut HTV just fine. Most HTV rolls that you're going to find are going to be sold in either 12-inch, 15-inch, or 20-inch wide. So just make sure you try to source the roll that makes the most sense for the width of your cutting width of your vinyl cutter. 15-inch is our most popular size. We do some material in 20-inch. I know whatever size you swear by, you love it, right? And you don't want the other size. So we end up offering the most popular materials in some different sizes usually. All right. Good to see everybody today. Thanks for saying hello. All right, and a bunch of hellos. So I think we're good. Everybody's up to speed. Okay. So now that we have the roll of heat transfer vinyl set up in the cutter, we're programmed and ready to cut. It's really at the point where we need to start creating something to cut. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so this software that I'm going to show you is called cadworkslive.com. And Stacy will link to it for you all, but it's just CADWorks, and works is with an X, live.com. So this is a free online design software. When you're working with a vinyl cutter, you want to be working with what's called vector artwork. Vector artwork is going to make your job easy. If a customer supplies what's called raster artwork, meaning like a picture or something that they just pulled off of the internet, you're going to have to work to make that vector. But if you create your art within CADWorks, basically it's vector art already. That's what CADWorks creates, is designed to create artwork for vinyl cutting. So set up a free account and you'll be good to go. And so once you're in here, there's this whole design space, and I don't have time to do a full training on CADWorks today, but what I'll tell you can do is you can work from templates, and there are a ton of pre-designed templates in here that you can customize. These are all available to you, and you can save those templates as well. And so when you design something, like if you go under My Files, you'll see some of the stuff that I've designed in CADWorks, and this is stuff I've designed over the years. So the design that we're going to cut here today is something that I've designed fully in CADWorks through adding text and adding boxes and those sorts of things like that. I'm just going to select that design, and let's go ahead, and I usually like to work from the width of the material. This is going to go on an adult shirt, so we're going to make it, this design, about 8 inches wide. And you can see the design is on the screen. Now, we really don't care about what color the design is, because whatever color of vinyl you load is what it's going to cut from. But if I go to the wireframe view, this is really the view of what the cutter sees. And so you can design in CADWorks, you can design in any vector art program, CorelDRAW, Adobe Illustrator. I know there's some other open source softwares out there like Inkscape, but a good vector designer is going to be key to your success with starting and producing HTV. Okay. Once you've created what you want, I'm just going to go to File and click on Send a Vector Cut. Okay. And so there are two parts of this. There's the design part, which is happening online. CADWorks is an online design program. And then there is this part that just launched called Vector Cut. and that is what's called a cut driver. This is the piece that's actually installed on your local computer, and most cutters operate through a USB connection. Some of the craft cutters are Bluetooth now, but in any case, you'll have some sort of cutter driver that typically comes with your vinyl cutter that will allow you to send the job. And so here you're seeing that I have my design. I actually have two colors. So I have the white and I have the black, but I'm going to select them both. This cutter driver is nice because if I was cutting this out of two colors of vinyl, I could do that. But here I just want to reverse out that white layer, but it'll show you that look. Now, when you're cutting HTV, you always want to cut your design in a mirror image because, again, we're cutting on the adhesive side, which needs to flip over and end up on the garment. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this design. Material utilization is critical here. I want to make good use of the material. And then once it's into place on the material, I have some extra material here. You can see you can type in the width of your material that you have loaded. When I look on my cutter screen, it's telling me 13.79 is the width of my available material. So you can decide if you want to make a couple smaller versions of this or fill this open space with something else, or you can save it as a scrap to be able to cut later. Now, the next thing I'm going to hit is Send Cut Job, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second because when I hit that button, pull back to my view here, I want you to be able to see that happen over on the cutter. So I have my cutter set up. I'm going to click Send Cut Job. Nothing's happening. All right, so helpful tip here. I'm not going to panic. All right, so I'm going back to my screen, and I was cutting on a cutter at work last, so I'm sorry about that. I'm going to switch it back to the other cutter. You can't see this, but I'm just changing, basically just like you would change the printer that you're printing to. I cut from multiple cutters from this computer. Just change the cutter, and I'll go back and click Send Cut Job again, and now it'll get to work. All right, so again, we've mirrored our image. The cutter is going to do all the work for me. Just send it over to the cutter. I've cut on this cutter, 10, 15 feet of material continuously for larger jobs where, of course, I like to pre-feed that 10 to 15 feet out first and make sure it's not going to run off track in the middle of a job, which ruins a lot of vinyl, which is a lot of cost. But the point is you can program a lot of designs. You can send it continuously and go work on something else. I usually have had this out in my garage. I'll send something and then I'll come in the house and go back and set a timer to check it in 20 minutes because I know it'll be done. And I'm ready to trim and bring it in the house and start weeding everything, which is our next step. Okay, so it cut it that quick, that design. I'm going to advance it out. And then on this cutter, there's a little blade where I can separate it. But the key point here is that you're going to trim out the piece that you've cut, and then I'm going to complete everybody's favorite part of the process. Just joking. Weeding. I know some people like weeding, though. So I'll just do it here so you can get a good look at it. So weeding is the process. You can kind of see the cut lines here on the material. You want to have a nice well-lit area so you can see the area that you want to weed. I'm just going to grab the corner of the material. And something I want you to notice is we call it Ultraweed for a reason, because it is extremely easy to weed. You want a material that's going to be very easy to use in this process. Okay, so you can see that pulled away all as one piece without any breaking, even those thin lines. A pro tip is if you heat your material, your hot peel materials, when weeding, they weed a lot easier for that reason. You can weed them on your heat press, or we've actually made a weeding panel, which is a little heated surface you can put on your desk or your tabletop that heats up to do the weeding on. But you're just going to remove all this excess and then reveal your design. Now, there is extra material here, so I'm just not going to peel that up. I want it to stay attached to the carrier, so I'm just going to trim that piece. And then that will go in my scrap drawer. So find yourself a folder system or storage system for scraps, because if they're rectangle or square pieces, I can load that into a cutter and I can cut, probably 3 or 4 hat designs just on that piece. These little strips on the outside, they're really not worth saving to do anything with, so I just weed that away. And as you can see here, I've created a heat transfer that's ready to be positioned and applied. Now, since we're here at the heat press, I'll go ahead and load my shirt and we'll heat apply this. And then I'm going to walk you through some different choices of material. I'm going to decorate this onto a hoodie, and this is just a cotton polyester hoodie. So I'm going to load it up onto my press. I love being able to split my item onto the press. It's going to allow for a nice even pressure. Lint roller's nice if you're getting any little carpet particles or whatever you have in your house off it. To clean it off is great. Going to take this cover sheet and I'm going to do a very important step that a lot of people forget about, and that's called a preheat. That preheat helps to warm up the base platen, especially if this is the first shirt you're going to press. It also helps to get the moisture and the wrinkles out of the shirt. Now, you remember I've said it a few times, when you're working with heat transfer vinyl, every HTV product has its own recipe. I like to give the analogy, your heat press is your oven. This is the cake that you're about to bake in the oven. Every cake has its own recipe, right? You read the box to figure out what to set the oven for. Same thing, when you're using HTV or any transfer for that matter, you're going to read the recipe. I know Ultraweed for garments that have cotton in them, 50% or more cotton, needs to be at 280 degrees at least, and it needs to be 12 seconds, and it's a hot peel. Okay, so we have all those settings on the inside of the roll when you receive it or on our website over at Stahls.com. But I'm just going to position that into place. It has that sticky backing so it can hold into place. I'm going to use a cover sheet. You don't really have to use a cover sheet unless HTV is exposed directly to the heater. But since most of you are probably beginners, best practice is always use a cover sheet, right? Until you get more experienced and know exactly when you need it. Won't hurt anything with HTV. And then I'm going to make sure that my timer, I know I'm at 280, my timer is at 12 seconds. So I'm going to lock the press down at a medium pressure, which is a 4 on my machine. There's a little red number says 4. And the pressure adjustment's right over the center. And then the press is going to automatically open. And a hot peel means you're going to peel this backing all the way, 45 degrees, corner to corner. You see how we did that? One of the biggest advantages of this all-purpose material is not only does it apply at a low temp, is it easy to cut and weed, but it's that true hot peel, which means this peels away, I've heard people say, like butter, right? It's just smooth, and there's really no way to explain it other than it's super duper easy. Okay. And then we have our completed result. Okay. So HTV, again, can do as little as 1. I can cut this on demand. If you're running an e-commerce store or an Etsy shop, I want you to hear this advantage because selling online is super important right now with the stage that we're in. You can literally store 20 rolls of different vinyl colors, and you can store, 10 different shirt styles and colors, and then you can cut on demand and mix and match. So this is true on-demand manufacturing because you haven't committed anything to a decorated good until you get an order, which gives you a lot of versatility and helps to protect your cash flow and your inventory dollars. So really smart business when we're working with vinyl. And just because it's called vinyl doesn't mean it doesn't feel soft. I would challenge anybody that says screen printing feels any better than this. This product is only 80 microns thick, and it has that matte finish. So you're getting a nice, soft, supple feel on the garment, and you can apply it to a wide variety of fabrics. Now, I'm going to peek in for questions.
We do have a lot of good questions coming in, Josh. I flagged some if you want me to read them.
They're the ones with the little Q's by them?
Yep, the red bubbles.
Okay, perfect. All right, Robert. Robert asked the question about understanding Cad Cut templates. Is that something Stahls produces and you would order individually? Is there a way to cut a monogram on your cutter? So Stahls can cut any of the heat transfer vinyl products I'm showing today for you. So if you don't want to buy a vinyl cutter and you just want Stahls to send it to you in that finished stage where it was weeded and just ready to position and press, that's one of our top product offerings. So you can absolutely do that through a section of our Stahls.com website. There's a Cad Cut Templates Designer. When you design on there, you're getting a live price for us to cut it for you, or you can always upload your own custom art for us to cut it. If you want to cut a monogram on your cutter, there's absolutely a way to do it. You can create that monogram from a monogram font in CADWorks Live, and just like I downloaded the file to VectorCut and send it to the cutter, you can absolutely do that as well. And we have a lot of videos on cutting monograms on our YouTube channel that you can search. Anna asks, does CADWorks work better than the software from Graftec? I've had the hardest time learning the Graftec Studio software. Short answer is yes. I find CADWorks to be much more designed for beginners, much more template-based, whereas the Graftec Studio, in my estimation, seems to be designed for sign makers and maybe people that already have a good experience with CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator, whereas CADWorks is a in-the-box beginner solution where you can work from layouts, templates, etc. And we have tons of training videos on our Stahls TV YouTube channel on using CADWorks that you can look up. How about Adobe Illustrator? Yes, Adobe Illustrator works for the cutter for creating vector art. Is the Graftec better than using the Cricut Maker? Yes. Cricut Maker is a great way to get started, and a lot of people, again, build their whole business out of them. So I'm not discrediting the Cricut Maker. We do a lot of training videos, Jenna does, with the Cricut Maker on our YouTube channel, but there's no doubt the Graftec's a better machine. Costs more too, though. And can you print from CADWorks, Tina asks. You can export as a PDF file and then print that PDF, so I would say yes. And why do we sell both cutters? What's the difference between Roland and Graftec? I love that question. We sell both cutters because you guys like to have a choice. And frankly, they're both good brands. And so my opinion is that the Graftec CE7000, which is their latest unit, is definitely feature to feature set. It's a better unit. And I don't think many people, certainly some people would debate it, but tracks longer, has more advanced feature like reducing material waste by cutting in front of the pinch rollers, has an overcut setting. Once you get into thicker or stretchy materials, it'll help to create cleaner cuts by enabling that true overcut setting, which Roland does not have. And it also has advanced function. It's more an expert function called tangential emulation, which again is really good for cutting thick materials, and a perf cut for doing stickers and decals. So I feel like Graftec feature set is the better machine. However, a lot of people have learned on the Roland cutters. A lot of people plan to expand into print cut at some time in the future, and there's no doubt Roland has the premier print cut machine. And so we see a lot of people invest in that Roland brand because it's been such a great brand out there. Can't go wrong with either cutter, though, I would say. So my suggestion would be just pick one. I personally prefer the Graftec. That's why I bought it. All right, let's see. I think we're good on little cues. A couple more. Can Photoshop be used instead of Illustrator? Dougie asks. Not to my knowledge. However, if you can create vector cut lines in Photoshop, I'm not a Photoshop pro, then the answer would be yes. But I believe it's primarily for raster artwork, but I could be wrong on that, but it's not very popular at least. Yes, Hope asks, new Graftec CE7000 from Stahls. Will we be doing new training on it? The answer is yes. We have one sitting in the studio we just moved to last Friday. I'm going there tomorrow to set up the studio for the whole day. And so in the coming weeks, for sure, we'll make sure we do some training on the CE7000. All right, cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the questions. I want to make sure we get through some more content, but I want to show layering. That's something I definitely want to get to. But I also want to show the financials because I think that's really important when you're investing into anything, understanding what something costs and can you make money at it. And so let me share my screen one more time for you. This is a free tool that we've created for you that helps you to calculate the cost to create what we just did and understand what it costs you to make. So it's a necessity, I think, if you plan to do this for profit. Again, I'm not going to go into a high detailed view, but you can enter your shop's overhead into the calculator, and you can hover and it'll give you tips on how to calculate that. You can enter how much you're paying yourself or whoever to complete the heat pressing and weeding. A lot of one of the top mistakes we see is people don't pay themselves for doing the production task. And I see you out there even through your computer. You need to start calculating your wage into that for doing that task, especially if you plan to grow and replace yourself. You need to have that built into your cost structure. So you can enter that, and these were averages that we received back for the 2019 year from people that completed the survey. And then from there, you save it, right? Because that stuff will remain relatively standard until you give yourself a raise or something, or move into a storefront, which increases your overhead. But then you get into the job info, and that's the part I want to focus on here. And so in this particular case, right, for the hoodie we just did, we had 1 cut designs per garment, right? We only did 1 design. It was a full front placement. How long did it take me to weed that design? Maybe about a minute. So you enter that. How long did it take to heat press? Probably about a minute. And how much did the blank cost? And so I don't have the exact cost of that hoodie, but I'm just going to pop it in there and let's just call it $12. How many garments did you sell for this job? So if you end up selling a dozen of those to your client, you can put a dozen in there. And then you'll go down and you'll punch in the exact width and length of the product you created. So again, I have my artwork here. It was 8 by 10.35. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 8 inches wide by 10.35, right? And it will tell me not only how much material I need, but it will tell me the cost for the product that I produced it in. Now we are updating this to include some of our new products. We did update it to include Ultraweed, which is the product that I just used. So go over to the right-hand side and you can see it has all the Stahls material. So it cost me about $1.09 in material, and that includes the waste that's factored in. It includes 22 cents in heat press labor based on my entries, right? $2.03 for my overhead, which covers my electricity, my rent, the space I'm using in my house, whatever that might be, my marketing expense, all those indirect costs, my garment cost, and so I get my total piece cost. Okay, so this is really helpful because now I know I can make that hoodie for $15.57, of which only $1 of it is the actual vinyl cost. And there's also some tools in here where you can build a price grid on what you would sell it for. So really helpful tool. I wanted you to be able to see that because I think that will help you as you try to make sure that you're selling it as a profit. Don't devalue your work. There's a lot of opportunity here. All right. Let's see. Yeah, and the Excel sheet is available for download from the site. You have to fill out a form, and then you'll be able to download this Excel sheet to be able to calculate it yourself. And then Stacy, if you need help finding that, just let me know, and I can take a couple-minute break and find it real quick while we take questions. All right. Moving on, we got about 15 minutes or so left together. I want to make sure we hit a mixed media job. But before we do that, now that you have a basic understanding of a workflow, I need to get away from the heat press. I'm starting to sweat here. Now that you have a basic understanding of the workflow, I'm going to go back to my slideshow, and I'm going to present some different top material styles that I told you I would. So we went through the Ultraweed. We've got that one noted. The next product that I want to talk about is Premium Plus. Now, for all intents and purposes, this is more or less the same finish as Ultraweed. I will say it's a little softer on the garment, and it's a lot more stretchy. And so if you find yourself wanting to decorate, for instance, like leggings or a sports bra or even compression gear or socks, something with a lot of stretch in it that needs stretch and recovery, this Premium Plus product is a product that you're going to want to have on stock in your business. Most people would either stock this or Ultraweed, but I just wanted to point out if you plan to use Ultraweed as your basic product, then Premium Plus is going to come in on that high stretch and recovery stuff. So make sure you note that. And we actually sell this product in 2 tack levels, and you'll see it here in the bottom bullet points. Choose low tack or high tack. And so that's really preference. I would recommend ordering a yard of each, trying them out, and figure out if you like a sticky backing or a little bit of a lower tack backing for what you're doing. I tend to prefer the sticky backing and putting it on that weeding panel or my heat press to weed it, which helps to alleviate any ease of weeding concerns. Okay, so far Ultraweed and Premium Plus. Next one is Thermofilm. Believe it or not, this is our top seller because we're big in the sports market. And so if you want to do sports uniforms, it's not that you can't use Premium Plus or Ultraweed for sports uniforms, but really Thermofilm is the most durable and the toughest product for these uniforms, especially when you're talking about contact sports. So if you plan to make sports a specialty of yours, specifically doing the uniforms, I would definitely look at Thermofilm as a product for that. Really, it's about double the thickness of the last two products that I've talked about, which gives it a lot more durability when it comes to contact, and certainly laundering and lasting season after season after season. All of the products that I'm showing you here today, however, are lab certified for the life of the garment, which is 50 plus wash and dry cycles. So very durable stuff. All right, one more standard heat transfer vinyl I think you need to have on your short list, and that is Gorilla Grip. So the three products I just covered, what they have in common is that they go to cotton and polyester and blends and those sorts of fabrics. When you start to want to decorate nylon, you really need to get into a special use product. And this Gorilla Grip 2 product is our top product for nylon and special use. So we see a lot on outerwear for jackets. I've seen it on umbrellas for sure. And there's all sorts of other applications that you can do that may be nylon. But if you have one of these tightly woven nylons, this is going to be a great solution. So know that there is an option for that. And a lot of people are nervous about putting a nice jacket under their press, but I'm telling you, with Gorilla Grip, you can definitely decorate nylon, no problem. We have videos that show you how to do that. All right. Now we pivot out of our standard products, although there's a lot more. I don't want you to get confused. So I picked my top ones and I wanted to give those to you very succinctly. So hopefully you understand those choices. It was Ultraweed for your everyday, Premium Plus for your high stretch and recovery, Thermofilm if there's contact and sports and abrasion, and Gorilla Grip if you want to go to nylon. Between those four products, you should be able to do it all, with Ultraweed being the majority of what everybody would use if you're just doing a standard t-shirt business. But if you're big into sports, you know, you'll diversify into some of those other ones. Then we get into special effects. These are some of our top selling special effects, and I have a couple pages of these. Glitter, far and away the #1 special effect. That's the one we're going to cut here in a moment. There is a metallic product. That product, I actually have a roll here that I can at least show you. It's almost like a foil. You see how bright that is in my picture down in the corner? So you get that bright metallic foil-like result. You can buy that by the roll, cut it, and heat press it. Flock, which is, some people have called it velour or velvet-like, so it has a texture to it. We see that used a lot on fleece or the Sherpa fabrics that actually look like lamb's wool, or even on like a golf towel. I've seen flock used a lot, so we want that touch and texture. Flock has been really popular there. Silicone, more of a rubbery base product, and reflective. We have a couple versions of reflective. This is reflective 2 is our economy grade reflective. We also have the certified 3M one that I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. More products, glow in the dark. We're seeing a lot of sales of glow in the dark right now. You might guess why, for Halloween. Chalkboard, saw a lot of sales for that on back to school for interesting applications. Teacher Appreciation Day. There's a lot of cool things you can do on the bags and storage inside of the classroom, onto totes and things like that with chalkboard. Or even, as you see in the picture there, restaurants with customized messaging for the drink special or whatever it is. And then you see some versions of metallics. We see a lot in spiritware and heat transfer vinyl. So you always see a lot of high, bright glitter metallics and variations of that you see there in the hologram and the chroma bling. And the one in the top left, soft foam, is one of our newest products. It's actually a dimensional product that almost kind of like flock, but it doesn't have the fuzzy texture. It's more of a foam-like feel. And I love this product onto fleece because it kind of matches the feel of the fleece with being super soft. So that was a whirlwind tour of our heat transfer vinyl products. So I'm going to peek in just to make sure I didn't lose anybody on that. I don't see any questions tagged right now for me, but I'll check back before we conclude. And I want to do a mixed media application because layering vinyl and mixing products is extremely important. And so for this one, we're going to do, I guess it's a size 4T little shirt, long sleeve shirt from Cavio. I'll show you how to get that up on the heat press appropriately. And we're going to combine Ultraweed. We're going to stick with that. We're going to go with this maize color, which is a shade of yellow, and one of our special edition glitter flake colors. And there's a lot of limited edition and a lot of colors available in glitter. You can see the nice glitter particle. And again, we're just cutting on the adhesive side. So let me share my screen. We're going to move off of this calculator for a second, and I'm going to go back to just pulling up some artwork here in CADWorks. So in case you miss it, we are operating out of CADWorks Live. I'm going to move into the templates, and let's just find a 2-color template that we want to use. This looks good because it's directly layered, which is kind of cool. And let me go back out of the wireframe view for a second to show you it. Okay. All right, so there's a good example of what I'm not going to do live for you, but I want to speak to it. So when you're cutting heat transfer vinyl, little things like this that are missing in a font and a letter, you may want to do them. And I know plenty of people that do super fine detail and they're proud of it and they make money at it, and that's great. That's not me. I like to be a little more efficient in my artwork and my design, but this is a good training point when you're getting into heat transfer vinyl. These little cavities and little marks in the text, those are all going to have to be weeded, okay? And so that's going to take time, and when you're spending time, it's going to cut down on your profit, in my opinion, when perhaps the customer would accept something that's much easier for you to complete. So unless you're making fine detail artwork your thing, I would suggest changing this to another font. So I'm just going to double click on this, and that'll allow me to change the font to whatever I want. And I can probably find something, maybe not just as cute, but pretty cute that that we can use here. So let's just go with this one for sake of time. And then, of course, you can change the text. That's one of the advantages here. So if I were selling this on Etsy, and let's just say I sold it to, we'll just use my daughter's name, Maddie, and they personalized it, I can just come in here, open up my template, change their name, and if it's Maddie's, first birthday, now I have the text. Now you can decide whether you want to do the crown or not as part of the design. We'll go ahead and keep it as part of the design. And again, just for our uses, let me change the colors. So that's going to be our background maze layer. And then we're going to heat apply the glitter, which will be the foreground layer directly over top of it. Now, with my layout complete, and you could have a bunch of different variations. And yes, it's very easy if I wanted to change the number 1 to a number 2 for a second birthday, whatever it is. I just double click it and change that. I'm going to size it up for my shirt. So I'm going to be pressing this shirt. There's going to be, I don't know, it's probably about, I think 6 inches. 6 inches wide is probably going to be around the right size. Right now, this is sitting at 9 inches wide, so I'm going to change that to 6. That'll adjust the height proportionally, which is about 6 inches as well. And I'll be good to send this to vector cut. And so again, once I have it laid out how I want, I can go to File. I can send a vector cut. I can click OK. It'll download it down into my bottom toolbar. I'll pull that up on the screen for us, and we can see we have our design here ready to go. Mirror my image. Since my vinyl cutter is already set up for Ultraweed, I'm going to do Ultraweed as the background. And you'll want to look at your different products and think about how they layer. Most vinyls layer together, but it's a big no-no to layer on top of glitter flake. And so for that reason, I've chosen Ultraweed as the background instead of doing glitter on glitter. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I have the yellow layer set up. You guys can see how that worked. Yes, I will want to rotate it to save on material. It's better not to create a bigger scrap than I need and go into my roll. Then I'm going to pick the other layer and I'm going to rotate that as well. Oh, and yeah, so you see how I separate that and didn't move it together? I'm going to hit Control Z on my keyboard and that'll just take it back to how it was. You can totally cut this like this, and this is a good learning tip as well. But there's going to be all this waste in between the layers, okay? If you're picky like I am about material cost and waste, I know it's not going to be that big a deal for me to place this crown on top of that number 1. It's a one-off shirt. It's not like they're going to be matching it up to the 20 other people in the group where it has to be perfect. So I'm going to take that crown, I'm going to slide it in here, and that's going to save maybe 2 inches of material, which could end up being 25 cents or so on the job. And so I've grouped that all together. I'll just trim this apart and manually place it. All I'm going to do from here is hit send to cutter. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you guys can see the cutting process again. And let's go ahead and load my Ultraweed in. And because this is a piece, this is kind of conceptually what would be for a scrap. Of course, scraps are going to be smaller, but all you're going to do is load your piece in. Again, would stick to the cutting mat if you're operating off of one of those Cricut or Silhouette cutters, or even the Brother Scan and Cut. I'm going to tell it to go ahead and find the front edge. If you're loading in a smaller piece, usually I would just tell it there's a sheet, and on this cutter it would read the length and the width of the sheet, but I have no doubt that my design will fit on this piece. It's a pretty big piece that I have loaded in here. So I have it all set up, and I'm just going to go ahead back to that piece of artwork that was my yellow color and send cut job. And the cutter is going to get to work, cutting in a mirror image. All right, once it's done, I can advance the rollout and trim it, or since this is the only thing I'm cutting and it's a piece, I'll just take the whole piece out for now. And let's go ahead and take our glitter roll. And this is being recorded, so if you miss something, I see some comments about missing one piece of it, you can actually go back and just watch that section once the recording publishes. This is a 20-inch wide roll, and the glitter, we sell it in 12 and 20-inch. Because I'm working on the 20-inch, I'm just going to move my pinch rollers on the side of it. Again, locking it down and telling it go find the front edge. Now, when you're cutting glitter, it's noticeably more thicker than your standard heat transfer vinyl. So you're going to have to increase your downforce, maybe increase your blade depth. But if I can control everything through downforce on the machine and I don't have to be adjusting that blade, that is really how I prefer to do it. So I'm going to go into my cutting settings, and I'm going to just increase my downforce. I'm cutting Ultraweed right now on a 12 based on my blade that I'm using. And I'm going to go ahead and move over to another preset I have set up for glitter, which is 27 grams of downforce. And I'm going to do a test cut. I am operating on a pretty dull blade, so you guys know. Typically, on a fresh blade, you can start cutting glitter at about 190 grams of downforce, or a 19 on your cutter. With my lighting, it's super tough to see everything here. So I'm trying to peel that out. You can see the triangle stayed behind with the square. That is not what I want, especially when I'm cutting a small design. So I'm a little bit worried about the accuracy of the cut that I'm going to get. I can even feel it when I try to separate the two, having a little resistance there. So that's pretty easy. I'm just going to increase my downforce is the first thing I want to do. So I'll go to my force, I'll increase it up. I jumped up by a couple digits, and then I'm going to go ahead and do another test cut. A lot better. Triangle stayed behind. Still not perfect. I wanted to lift it a little bit, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and cut it. In most cases, I think I need a new blade here. So if it's not cutting glitter at 29, which is 290 grams of downforce, I probably need a new blade. It's time, but we're going to give it a whirl for the sake of time. Again, I'm just going to pull up that file I showed you a moment ago, which was the Maddie with the little crown. And just make sure that's positioned where I want it on my sheet, and then I'm going to send it over to the cutter. Minimize that so I'm seeing you. And then I can complete the weeding process on this piece. Now I'll weed it since I put a weed border around it before I trim it out. So I'm just going to look for the little rectangle. You can see it there. Weed away the excess. See, it's been weeded, and then I'm going to just trim that piece out. I will say there's no real advantage to having like odd-shaped scrap pieces left over. What I mean is like something like this is not going to benefit you. So you might as well take the time to just trim this out and make it a rectangle and a rectangle. That's the only way you're going to be able to load it and have success, because otherwise it wouldn't have anything to feed the rollers down on. You'll see once you start working with vinyl if that didn't make sense to you. So I'm going to finish peeling the edge from this. And I have my full background design. Now my glitter is done cutting. So this should be an adventure with weeding this one, especially with all the detail in that crown. I'm going to grab, my razor and just slice this piece off, and then I'll bring it in front of you for weeding. When you're working with thicker materials, any material really, I like to kind of bend the product to see the cut lines. It is nearly impossible to see the cut lines on some products, and certainly I'm not doing myself any favors with my lighting situation here, with having my back to the main light. So I'll bend it, and you don't have to be super delicate. And I can see, like, there's the corner of my weed border. I just found it, and that will give me the ability to trim this piece off and save this as scrap. Okay, so now going to start weeding. And I'm not sure I'm going to have success here. I mean, I know it's tough for you guys to see. Let me see if I can get you a better view and show you how. This is a good part about the live too, is you can see when stuff doesn't work, right? And actually I want to remove it from the heat when it's not working like this, because the heat is helping to release the material from its carrier. But you can see when I'm weeding, it's like picking up all those cut pieces. I can see I got some semblance of the Y and the name Maddie here left behind, but I'm not getting a whole lot else because it's just not cut accurately. And so if this is you, a couple things that need to happen. One is change the blade. You should never have to babysit a material like this, although I'm going to do it because I don't have a fresh blade here. I want to get to conclusion on this job and show you how to heat apply it. I will salvage at least the name out of this. I probably won't be able to get that crown. But you can see I'm kind of just like walking it and like using my finger to support it and pulling against it. Should never be this difficult. So if that's you, change the blade. Keep some extra ones on hand. I always recommend having an extra blade on hand, just in case you get into a situation like mine where you have a job that's due or something that's on a time crunch and you don't have what you need. This does have a sticky backing, so if you have pieces that are wanting to lift when you're weeding, kind of see how that M is lifting right here, you can push that back down. And so that is another advantage of working with a product that has a sticky backing, is you can always push those pieces back down. And again, I'm going to salvage this, and it's going to work, but we would never want to do this in a production setting. And so I've used glitter a lot in my business, and glitter doesn't have to be, it is more difficult to work with than your standard HTV, but it never should be more than, I would say, taking you 10 or 20% more of the time. In this case, I removed the Y out of the name, so I'm just going to manually position that back down because it is a one-off shirt. And I got the outside of the crown, but if you remember my original artwork, there should be some inside pieces there, but there are no way I'm going to try to chase those around while we're already 5 minutes over here. So I'm going to just apply the whole thing. And in this case, another tip, when you're using glitter, you won't see those extra cut lines in it. So if you're happy with just the silhouette of the crown for the particular job that you're doing, there's no way that the customer will see, even if there are extra cut lines in glitter material. Now, it's not always the case for your other materials. But we're good enough. Got it. We're making it happen. And we're going to pull you in close for our last application before I finish with some Q&A. Now, if you're using a Stahls press, or any press that matter that has an interchangeable attachment, the best practice for this is to go ahead and change this attachment out and load a more appropriate size, whether that's a 6 by 10 inch or 11 by 15 inch. However, I do keep what's called heat printing pillows nearby my press for some special uses, and heat transfer vinyl can totally be applied with the heat printing pillow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lay the pillow in to show you that you can load this item flat with the pillow underneath. Now, when you're using a pillow, you do need to adjust the pressure on your machine a little bit, retract it, because you've added some thickness in there. I'm going to preheat my garment, and now I'm ready to apply. So when you're laying heat transfer vinyl, this is one of my favorite features of Ultraweed. And so I'm going to just line up this number one. The background is Ultraweed. You can see it here positioned. I can press this for just 2 to 3 seconds and hot peel it. That's going to give me a couple advantages. It's going to speed up my production, but it's also going to keep that background layer from shrinking, especially if you were lining up something that has really tight registration that needs to maintain. And so when you're searching for a core heat transfer vinyl, look for one, well, just by Ultraweed, how about that, that hot peels. You can see the heater, because I got some gunk on my heater, even just remove the carrier after just 2 seconds, and the vinyl didn't move at all, which is awesome. Now, that's not ready to go through the wash yet, but that has been prepared enough where I can take my glitter layer then. Again, being a little more delicate, I can position that on top. I can take that crown piece that I've trimmed separate to save on vinyl, right, and drop that up on my material, and then heat apply. Now, on this, you see how this carrier is running over the Ultraweed here. It's crossing it and not fully covering it. That's going to leave an indent. And these are the little details of heat transfer vinyl that a lot of people won't teach you. But what I like to do on this is when you have that crossover, and again, vinyl is exposed directly to the heater, so I'm best to use a cover sheet now. I'm actually just going to tack this layer for a couple seconds as well, right? And that's one of the advantages of Stahls Glitter Flake, is you can do this fast tack where I apply it, I peel it, and now I get little to no indent where it crossed over. And if it is on there, it's only on there temporary. And I'm going to go ahead and cover it, the whole thing now, with a cover sheet and apply it for the full recommended time, temperature, and pressure for my hottest material. So in this case, that would be glitter, which would require, from memory, 320 degrees, 10 to 15 seconds. Even though Ultraweed can apply at 280, I want the glitter to stay too. So I need to run it at the higher setting to finish it off, to make sure that material that requires more gets enough in the process. Okay, and then we have a completed result. It was a long way getting there, but we have our glitter applied, and you get that nice sparkle. You get a texture here, and it's not a texture that flakes off at all into your hands. So I always say that, you know, people love Glitter Flake for that reason as well. It's a selling point, and you have the Ultraweed as the base layer. So we made it, pressed a couple things, hopefully taught you some things of even what not to do in the process, but that tacking method is extremely helpful. So let me take a couple questions before we wrap up today. Stacy, do you have anything that sticks out, or is it marked?
I tried to do my best to answer everything. I'm just scrolling through and seeing if I forget anything else. I know a few people were concerned about not being able to see the setup. They saw your initial screen with the Maddie and the one, but they didn't see a screen where you separated the colors. Oh. So we might have to send some education pages over to them, because I don't think it showed up when you shared your screen. I'm sorry, if they're still on. Wow, why is it doing that today? Hold on. Let me try. I think as I'm moving my computer around and my connection isn't doing what it should. There we go. I'm going to drag it over because I think that is pretty important. Now you're seeing it, right? Yes, we didn't see that earlier, so I just think that it probably didn't show when you shared your screen. Sorry, guys, that was my fault. So originally, let me try to at least get it halfway represented here.
So originally, if you remember the artwork, it came across like this, right? Where you had the name, how we finished in the middle, and you had the crown hanging off of the top of the one. Okay, so all I did is in Vector Cut, it identifies the colors. And so rather than just cutting this like this with this space in between the crown and the Matty and wasting that vinyl, I thought it would be beneficial to go ahead and grab this crown and slide it down in to save on the vinyl cost. That way, after I cut it, I could save on the vinyl cost, and I would be perfectly fine with manually placing that crown like you just saw me do in the application. And then, yes, this is rotated, so I'm not utilizing too much material. And this one, again, I rotated that one and brought it down to this bottom corner, so I'm not wasting material, and I create a nice piece of scrap, but as little as possible. And just another tip here is when you are working with heat transfer vinyl, you're thinking about how you're going to sell it, try to stick to common colors, because if you are selling on Etsy and you do birthday shirts, wouldn't it be better if a lot of orders came in for white vinyl, right? And then you can do the different colors in glitter rather than offering white, blue, red, orange, yellow, etc. It just adds more inventory, more loading and unloading of rolls, more waste in the process. So try to be intelligent about how you offer and merchandise colors, what becomes special order that you upcharge for. All right, I see a question from Tina that I want to address. Starting out with the pink craft press, when the project is larger, will it hurt being repressed and then pressing other parts? No. Actually, one of the examples that I started with in this class was how you do a big tent top. I mentioned that as one of the tough things to do. And for that, we broke it up across the press in like 6 different steps. So it's absolutely no problem to heat and reheat the vinyl as long as it's not at some ridiculous temperature, like 100 degrees over what it's supposed to be. All right, so I think we did a pretty good job, hopefully, getting through the questions. If you have more, as always, you can find me on our Heat Press for Profit Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook, I would encourage you to join that group of other entrepreneurs. You can just search for Heat Press for Profit on Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. We publish at least 3 videos a week, giving you content to help you grow your business. And we can be found on youtube.com/StahlsTV, as in television. And there's thousands of videos, hundreds of thousands of hours there for you to learn and grow your business. And you'll get a follow-up email after this with a link to the recording through Webinar Jam. And eventually, probably in weeks, it'll post to YouTube as well. So that's all I have today. I want to thank you for sticking with me and wish you the best of luck in your vinyl business. And that's it. Thanks for watching.